A new mod was just added to the Team Mod Loader marketplace only days ago, TerRougelike, the ultimate Terraria roguelike experience. When I saw it, I thought, why not give it a try? So in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I spawned in on a forest-themed dungeon with a gun and sword, both doing 100 damage. I also had a double jump and increased speed, which is very useful for navigating the world. When I walked forward, it trapped me into an arena-like space where I began spawning enemies. It was pretty cool how this mod changed the behavior of vanilla Terraria enemies and also added their own. Defeating a floor would give you an item that would benefit your journey. The first one I got increased damage when at full health, which is very handy if I managed to stay alive. The next floor introduced a few more enemies, but I was able to take them out pretty easily, and I got an antique lens, which gives an attack size buff, which isn't really good for ranged. Next floor, I got a remedial tapeworm, which spawns little healing orbs when you kill an enemy, which is pretty helpful. I then almost died, but came back and got a protective bubble, which reduces damage below 50% health. On the next floor, however, I was overwhelmed and brutally murdered in cold blood. Restarting, I spawned in a different level with no items. This time, a bunch of new enemies spawned in, and I immediately died on the second wave. I diagnosed this problem as a deadly condition and a skill issue, so I took it down a notch and started a new world on the new moon difficulty, the easiest one. I started in the same map as the very first time, and the first item I got increased damage reduction again, which is very useful as I seem to have a problem with dying. I then got a cornucopia, which increases healing effectiveness by 50%, then next floor I got a benign fungus, which spawns healing mushrooms when I walk. Little did I know how overpowered this item was and how many times it will save me. After that, I got a clingy grenade, which sometimes hits enemies with sticky, high damaging grenades. I then got a disposable turret, which spawns a turret that consistently fires bullets at nearby enemies. And after getting a gift box, which spawns an extra item per floor, it was time for my first boss, the Bramble Hollow. It had an array of unique and powerful attacks to use, and also had the ability to fall into the ground and come out on a wall or the roof. Thankfully, the map spawned with a fully functional arena for me to use, minus buff stations. Also, he could summon some enemies to fight for him, which was actually useful for me for getting turrets out every time I killed them. And though he put up a good fight, at the end of the day he was a tree and I was a gunslinging lumberjack, and he fell to my weapons. I got a lock-on missile from this floor, which can sometimes spawn a homing missile when attacking an enemy. I went through a portal and came out to a shop, where I swapped out a clingy grenade with a hot pepper, which sets enemies on fire, and my cornucopia for a salvage minigun, which turns my handgun into a mini shark, pretty much. Looking back on the footage, I saw a spent shell in the shop, and I didn't know then, but it lets you shoot one more bullet, which would have been extremely useful to me. Anyway, the next level was the corruption biome, with a sanguine orb as my first item, which can inflict bleeding on hit. The first floor introduced new enemies, each with a unique attack. My fast-firing gun shredded through the enemies, and I quickly cleared the room and got an attack plan, which releases 8 homing missiles when you get to a new room, which was actually overpowered. And after plowing through some more floors, it was time for another boss. This mod, as usual, had taken a regular Terraria boss and twisted it at every turn, making very entertaining and satisfying fights. With the help of all my items though, he wasn't even a problem. I did get hit a few times, but my regen and damage ended up winning me the fight easily. The next floor was a shop, where I swapped out the remedial tapeworm for an antique lens, which was pretty stupid as the antique lens kinda sucks. I was then plunged straight into the underground desert, and after a quick therapy session, I began. As usual, it spawned in new enemies and twisted them, especially the antlions, which became very annoying to deal with. The first item I got here was the Thrill of the Hunt, which gives stackable buffs when killing enemies. Quickly, I came to the boss arena. The boss itself was a buff desert spirit, with crazy bullet hell attacks, but it was no problem at all for me. I got an enchanted eye, which increases crit chance and gives me more health when I crit. I did not get a shop after the desert and immediately went to the underworld, where I got the portal generator, which gives immunity when entering a new floor. This floor had some of the most annoying enemies in the vanilla Terraria underworld, but the special attacks made some easier to deal with and some harder. In one of the rooms, I got the blood siphon, which can heal from enemies on hit, and when mixed with my fast fire rate, it made one of the best healing items I could have gotten. Before I knew it, it was time for a boss. The boss of the underworld was, surprise surprise, the Wall of Flesh. It changed the AI of the Wall of Flesh that it didn't move at all, and instead was literally just a wall of flesh. Some of its attacks were about as bullet hell as it gets, but others were just plain weird. However, I got the better of him, and just like that, my world was plunged into hard mode. Just kidding, but I did get an item that allowed my bullets to bounce, which is pretty overpowered. The next floor was another shop, where I swapped out a damaging item for another sanguine orb. Then I went through the portal and came into the jungle temple, where I got some more regen right off the bat, which was nice. This floor had some basic jungle temple and jungle enemies, changing some things about them, as well as simply making some stuff up. The first item I got was Times Have Been Tougher, which can block attacks with an 8% chance. Pretty quickly I made it to the boss room, where Golem's head was stuck to the roof, waiting for me. This boss had some pretty wacky attacks, but it stayed in the same place, which made it pretty easy. I did get hit quite a few times, but it hardly mattered, because even with its fast health pool, my DPS and regen killed him with no trouble at all. I then got a barrier item, and after entering a weird pillar-themed corridor, I got another. I started running down the corridor, and the void around it, paired with upbeat music, really set my nerves on edge. I had no idea what to expect, but I wasn't really surprised when I came into a large open arena where the Moon Lord, the big man himself, lay dormant, watching me in his magic cocoon. I figured I had to kill the 4 pillars before challenging Moon Lord, so I did that, killing the solar pillar first, then Nebula, then Stardust, and finally Vortex. After killing off all the Vortex enemies, I went down to fight the half man, half squid, half there moon being, and he shattered his shield to fight me. I started by attacking his top eye, used to his phantasmal death ray phase in vanilla Terraria, but instead he started trying to grope me with his strange moon squid mouth tentacles, which I did not appreciate one bit. So he started firing moonlaces instead, which I evaded, so he sent a barrage of giant eyeballs in my direction, and after missing repeatedly, finally he shot out his death ray out of every eyeball in my direction. To counter, I popped his right hand eye, then the middle, and lastly the left eye. Hand eye, I mean. So now his heart was open, so I put all of my effort into it. It was a grueling fight, but I came out victorious, slaying the master of Terraria, and beating the mod once and for all. Is what I would have said if a timer didn't appear and the roof started collapsing. The game egged me to run back down the corridor I came from. The music picked up. I ran faster. Rocks fell down from the roof. I finally made it through to the jungle temple room, and I stopped to pick up a coolant barrel. I stopped to fight some enemies, then gave up and ran, blitzing through the levels, getting past enemies before they could even form properly. I was jumping over buildings in hell, dodging attacks from hordes of monsters. I made it to the corruption, then finally the forest. I ran like all hell, like the Flash himself, stopping for nothing and nobody, until I made it to the entrance. I had 30 seconds to spare when I threw myself into the portal, and found myself face to face with the true brain of Cthulhu, who made a fully enclosed border of blue energy encasing me on the surface with him. He finally finished and the fight began. He kept teleporting everywhere, which made it very hard to hit. It summoned true servants of Cthulhu and true eyes of Cthulhu who shot out phantasmal death rays, but my healing fungi healed damage faster than the brain could deal it. They had so many attacks to use, but none of them really posed a threat to me. My damage was pretty great, so I got up to half health, then pretty quickly to full health, and then at long last, I slew the brain of Cthulhu, and he exploded into a million pieces and was sucked into a black hole that then flew to behind the moon and out of sight. the credits started rolling and I had done it. I had defeated TerRougelike, by far my favourite mod I've ever played. It was on the easiest mode, but it still counts. I greatly recommend this mod, and after finishing this video, of course, I think you should go play it. Thank you so much for watching this far. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe because it helps out a ton. Please tell me your other video suggestions in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.